Hello, Internet, and welcome to another Wednesday serial. You notice I'm sporting my terrace beard. That's going to have to go soon because I am flying over to Rose City, so I've got to make sure I'm flight ready. But enjoy the last bastion of my puffy neck beard, letting my true self come out. So I got some comics. I just kind of want to talk through some of them. Yeah, so Paper Girls 9 I enjoyed. Um, this is a fun comic, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm kind of wondering if this is going to have legs to keep going much longer, because it's just reached a point where I'm like, oh man, if we just have like another leg left, this could be really awesome and really strong. And I'm wondering if I'd like it more if it was rested, which is interesting because I read it in trade, so I want to just talk here. Invincible has been announced that they're doing a cutoff. It still has a ways to go yet, and by the time I read it all, it'll be ways out. But I'm a little sad that they're not passing on Invincible, because I feel like that's a comic where if you brought in another creator, it really could have done something interesting there. And so I'm sad to not see that, because I would like to see some of this other creator-owned stuff get passed on. It would be cool to see some non-superhero stuff that was creator-owned get passed off, but I don't know how much of that exists yet, because we're still not that far out from the initial Image push, and we have a lot of stuff trying to imitate more like a 60-issue run. And so the stuff to just be truly ongoing that could be passed off is fairly limited numbers. I don't know if stuff like Savage Dragon would work, but I mean, Spawn already has, and that's cool. It would be cool if we could get Wildcats back and get some new people on that, but it's a foregone conclusion at this point. So yeah, a couple quick purchases I haven't actually read yet, but I've been reading like a maniac lately. You got the first issue of NFL Super Pro. Yeah, that was a quarter well spent, I'm sure. And New Island Yet. This is a book I always save to kind of digest when I have less to go through, so hopefully get to that soon. Hellblazer 1 has me interested. They're playing a lot off of a Swamp Thing dynamic here, and I really enjoyed the issue, but I'm kind of wondering if Hellblazer is going to be a bit more of a slow burn book, which will make me maybe want to go trade waiting for this. It's the first DC that has me thinking like this. I do want to read it, but I do kind of question if this is more to the trade than other books, which would be fine, because we actually don't get a lot of that, and it's good to have different paced and whatnot books. But yeah. Also, then Wonder Woman 5, and these are the odd numbers, so the ones that I really think are worthwhile. We get a play with Cheetah and Wonder Woman that I haven't really seen before, that has me really interested where this book's going, and if they play more of that to the kind of old stuff, because there's some bit between their past relationship that they allude to, and if we see more of that in more of the prologue stuff, I'd be more interested, because this whole Wonder Woman origin deal is the most trite part of the entire DC Rebirth thing right now. So yeah, sorry, scattershot here. Afterlife with Archie number 10. When this book comes out, it's totally worth picking up, and this is so off the rails, a crazy Josie and the Pussycats that I honestly think they could have gone a different way, and this is such a well-told story, I can't even hold it against them. But God, I am sick of just vampires. It's been a while. Anyways, yeah. So, next up, Tokyo Ghost reaches a conclusion, and I can't tell you how happy I am that this book actually was a finite book. As I was talking about last time, this being collected, I think it'll be collected in 2 trades, sadly, because I mean, I think you can make a 10-issue trade work. It would be a little bulky, but I mean, Watchmen was 12, and I think that's one of the strongest bits put together. In a lot of ways, I think this is the strongest kind of what will be a collected graphic novel that we've gotten since Punk Rock Jesus, in no small part because of the same artist, right? And Sean Murphy makes me a little weak in the receptors, but I think Tokyo Ghost was something special. I think it's trying to say something important about where we are and how we lead our lives and how we should try to live our lives. And I don't agree with all of it, but it is such a counterpoint to where we are at as a society. I have to respect it on some level for being so well laid out. I think it's something more that when you reread it, like, there's a lot of glib humor and there's a lot of crazy action stuff, especially near the end. But I think there's something definitively there, and there's something in that character that's deeper, and it's one of those books I really kind of want to mull over, because I feel like there's kernels of something deeper that I didn't get through just an initial reading, month by month. So, yeah, if you guys didn't, getting Tokyo Ghost collected, potentially maybe with, if it's anything like a Punk Rock Jesus, a couple extra pages here or there, such a strong story waiting for you. It's one of those things I think I won't be able to recommend enough. Alright, so Saga 37. Things are picking up again. We're getting a bit more sci-fi than just the family side that we've been dealing with for a while, which I bet some people will be excited about. I've just been on board. Saga's just one of those books at this point, man. I don't know if I have tons to say, but I'm loving it. Chew 57, though, oh man, we're so close to the end at this point. This is one of those books I was talking about. It was going for that long run, but a definitive run. And man, I am curious to see where this ends up, because these last chunks, like, the story seems like it would have ended at the last bit, but this last chunk has been spinning off of so much that's been built up that I am just curious to see where it unwinds to at this point. It's crazy. Yeah. So, Slot, Dead No More. I don't like the Alex Ross cover, but we get this crazy play with the Prowler sneaking in where he shouldn't, doing something he didn't really want to do, and we're dealing with another rebirth, and there's been so much play with this death and rebirth idea that permeates comics in a way, but Dan Slott's playing on that in such a crazy way. He's doing it again. He's creating the story, and he's putting it on stilts, and we're building, and it's super interesting, but it all lies in the ending, and we're not there yet. I think there's a lot of interesting build, and there's a lot of interesting play and foreshadowing, so I have a feeling it won't be a dud. But whether or not he's able to pull this one off yet again would be crazy, because he's had a couple fumbles, and they usually come around when editorial or a book shift happens, but this won't be one of those, so I have high hopes. But if this Dead No More story goes off, I'll be pretty impressed. It's a pretty bold move in comics, I think, to plan something that's that metatextually kind of drawn out to comic readers, and to just play with that fabric is interesting. The whole death and rebirth idea on the level he's doing it, with a side portion of cloning in Spider-Man, it's pretty ballsy. I gotta hand it to him, so I'm pretty on board, because he's doing it again. It's risky, but it's interesting, so undoubtedly probably the most golly read that Marvel's putting out, especially with a white male protagonist right now. Spider-Gwen 11 finally feels like Spider-Gwen again. No tie-ins, no spin-off stuff. Like, there's a lot of build where it seems like they honestly had all that, and now they've spun all that out, and there's a bit in her, like, going through and where she knows she needs help, but she's like, I have no one to go to help to. This is my responsibility. And doing that just felt so earnest. And so now she's dealing with she's dealing with some big bads in her neck of the woods, and she now, with her powers being on those power-up bits, she only has a few left, so I'm really curious to see where this book goes, because if they pull it off, and they pull off a straight ending for Spider-Gwen and just leave it, I think it'll almost be remembered stronger if they just let it lie. Leave them wanting more. So, yeah, I think we're getting to another one of those cycles in comics where a lot of things are ending, and we just had some beginnings, so we're kind of reaching a new cycle up. But it's 2016, not 2021, so we'll see. Alright, time for Turtles Corner. Turtles 61. Holy crap. Holy crap, guys. This is the best book I've read in weeks again. Where they're going with it and playing with it is amazing. There's a moment in here where Splinter is talking about, as the head of the Foot, with kind of the Inner Sanctum, the Turtles, and a few others, about what they have to do and who they have to go after and exploiting weaknesses when Michelangelo's there, and he's like, what's happened? You're talking about exploiting weakness and taking advantage and attacking. What happened to honor and defending the peace and yada yada? When we weren't the Foot, we were talking the other way. And he just takes off, and it leaves this small ideological schism that has a lot of people questioning, but they're going along with it for now because that's kind of their role. We're also seeing Casey Jones sucked in a different way now that him and April split. How that's going to rectify, because it looks like Splinter's taking advantage of Casey being a loose cannon. So, curious to see where that goes. And then Turtles Universe looks like some Turtles small story stuff, which is good to have some of the lighter end, but it doesn't quite resonate as well as some of the other Turtle B books that have happened in the past. So I'm curious to see if maybe that picks up or how that plays out. Alright. So DC. Like a lot of other people, I've been reading a lot of DC, and I've been feeling a little bit of guilt, but I've been really liking the comics, so yeah. Action. Oh man, this cover. Cutting an end to this Doomsday thing and an end for the action setup. I'm interested, but now that we're here, kind of curious to see if we get to lay in a little bit more with Lex and our Mystery Man. Because in here, I'm less interested about the Superman angle, and the Clark Kent angle I have zero interest in. So, see how they butter that up. Batman Detective Comics, some Dick Grayson shining moment here, and a cliffhanger unlike any other. This has been a high-stakes, pure superhero book on a way that I don't think we see much anymore. This felt like 2000s again. This felt like old DC in the best way possible. I'm pretty psyched about that one. Then, Superman 5 and 6, because my shop can't seem to keep my list going right now. The whole Kent's versus the Eradicator thing was crazy. It was such a perfect use of a villain to kind of exemplify something that they're setting up with the human weak side, but then the humanity of Superman being what saves the day, and the whole mama bear protecting her cub, with Lois coming in with to take out the Eradicator. I don't want to spoil that, but it's this whole family thing and based around something that was family affair. For a villain, for Superman to be playing with that was so strong. Such a great use. I really enjoyed that, and it did get those flashes of Batman and Robin there, and it felt like what I was wanting from that book in such a strong way. Green Arrow, after dropping us off at the island, has this Miko story, kind of recounting some of her time with Ollie to the trouble she's gotten into now. It's interesting, but with the pile of DC going on, I'm not sure how much I'm feeling it. Between the island and that, they're losing me pretty quickly. Without any social angle or any real, tighter, larger cast to the Green Arrow stuff going on, I lose interest very quickly, especially since it doesn't have the martial arts angle of years past. It's just not a Green Arrow that's hitting me. Nightwing number 4, I wasn't expecting this quickly. They do wrap up a certain angle in here, and in here it made me realize something. The Court of the Owls was invented, and then they kind of spun it out with the big Batman thing in the New 52, and then there was Talon, which played around with the idea of being an agent very similar to what they were doing here. But then, since then, almost every other time they deal with the Court of Owls, it's like they have some agents that they're manipulating or something. It's never just the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls always made sense to me as this secret cabal that's very tight-knit, and they wouldn't bring in outside influences. If it's not in their cabal, then they wouldn't use it, because they need the secrecy to be as effective as they can be. And with them having these grand machinations all over the planet, they kind of lose their purpose, they lose their point, and they lose the interest that they started with. So I don't know. I'm wondering now if the Court of the Owls has been marred past their initial representation so quickly, too, compared to so many other DC villain groups. Because I feel like there's a lot of potential there, but if you don't keep them Gotham-centric and kind of creaking in the corners where even Batman wouldn't look, how effective are they? And with you have them doing these human trafficking bits across the world and whatnot, how interesting is that really? Because then it just makes them kind of Yakuza, but not Yakuza or something. It just didn't engage me on the same level from the villain aspect. I felt like the Court of the Owls here could have been exchanged with just a gang. And it might have been stronger if it was, because then you could have played some ethnic ties that maybe Grayson would be stepping into and need to step outside of Richie Rich Batman's purview to kind of deal with, which would kind of make sense with maybe some Bloodhaven ties of the past. I really feel like there's angles that they could have exploited there, that if they weren't so focused on the Court of the Owls, they could have done something more interesting, something a bit more like what I want from Green Arrow at the moment too. So it feels kind of like a missed opportunity. Then we kind of get a wrap up with Gotham Girl and Batman 6. Yeah, it felt like a wind down issue after such a big thing. But then there was the King Jewel, Aquaman versus Superman. And this issue, which is the last of this initial arc on issue 6, wow. This is going to have implications that's going to rock for a while. And I'm kind of wondering how much will play into like a Justice League or Superman thing going on, because I think this book positions Aquaman into an interesting position in the DC universe, very akin to Black Panther position in the Marvel universe. It's a very fascinating idea, and I think it's kind of the way Aquaman's needed to be written for years, and they've never quite gotten in there. Um, and it makes me realize that maybe for a while it's one of the characters that Joe Kelly, of all people, mishandled and put it into a different direction, wanting to go for a more literary tie instead of going for the more interesting one held in the DC universe. If you don't know, Joe Kelly kind of made Aquaman tap into the waters of old with some crazy Justice League story. It made him very Poseidon-esque, trying to make him the king of the sea in embodiment, not just in name. And while there's a lot of literary reason for that, it's a less creative idea, even though it is maybe not as obvious as this one is, which is to kind of do more politics with a king interfacing with a mostly American government around the people he'd be dealing with. But that play here is so much more interesting because you get a tense talk between Superman and Aquaman, and they slug it out a bit, but it's the conversation that they have that's more interesting, and for that you realize the diplomatic relations are really kind of the action here. The words are action. It's such a perfect play for a comic where you can get in a little fist fight, but you can have these scenes where it's just as tense if the wrong word is said. I am so fascinated with Aquaman right now. So great.